I still do not know how to explain what my eyes saw that night, and even now, many years after, when I try to tell it, my chest becomes tight and my voice starts to shake. If somebody had told me before that time that I would kneel down on a cold floor and cry out the name of Jesus with my own mouth, I would have said that person is mad, or that person does not know me at all. But I am telling you today, the thing I am about to say to you is not a story somebody told me. It is not something I heard from another man, and I am repeating it to you like parrot. This is what happened to me with my own 2 sons, in front of my own eyes, and I was the one holding their small bodies when it happened. My name is Ibrahim Denladi, and before all this, I was an imam. Not a small one, not somebody who was just learning small. I led prayers in my community for many years. People used to come to me when they have problem. When somebody is sick, when somebody is troubled in the mind, when a family is having quarrel, they will come and meet me, Imam Ibrahim, and they will say, "Imam, please pray for us." I would put my hand on their head and I would pray. I believed with all my heart that Allah was hearing me. I did not doubt one small bit. My faith was strong like the trunk of an old tree, the kind of tree that has stood in the village for 100 years and nobody remembers when it was planted. That is how strong I thought my faith was. I had 2 sons. Their names were Musa and Yakubu. Musa was the older one, he was 8 years, and Yakubu was 6. These 2 boys, I cannot explain to you how much I loved them. When a man has children, especially boys in our culture, it is like something inside him that he cannot touch or see, but it is there, strong, holding him together. Musa had a laugh that used to make the whole house feel light. Even when I was tired from teaching all day, when I hear that boy laughing outside, chasing his brother around the compound, something inside me would relax. Yakubu was smaller, more quiet, but he liked to follow his brother everywhere. If Musa go left, Yakubu go left. If Musa climbs something, Yakubu want to climb him too, even if he is too small for it. They were not just my sons. They were my 2 eyes. That is how I used to describe them to my wife, Zainab. I used to tell her, "These 2 boys are my 2 eyes. If one of them is not well, I cannot see anything again." I am telling you this so you will understand what kind of pain I am about to describe to you. This is not just a story about sickness. This is a story about a father watching his 2 eyes going dark, one after the other, and there was nothing that he could do about it. It started with Yakubu, the small one. It was during the dry season, the time when the wind used to blow dust everywhere and the air was hot even in the night. Yakubu started to cough. At first we did not think anything of it, because children cough, that is normal, that is life. But after some days the cough did not stop. It became worse. Then he started to have fever, the kind of fever that make his small body hot like fire when you touch him. My wife would put wet cloth on his head through the night, and by morning the cloth would already be dry and warm again from how much heat was coming out of that boy. Then, may Allah forgive me for even remembering this, Musa too started the same thing. First it was small cough, then fever, then his body started to grow weak. I remember the day Musa could not stand up to go and greet me when I come back from the mosque. This was a boy that used to run to meet me at the gate every single day, shouting, "Baba, Baba," before I even reached the house. That day, he just lay there on the mat, looking at me with eyes that did not have strength in them again. That was the day fear entered my heart properly. Not small fear. The kind of fear that sits inside your stomach like a stone, and it does not move, no matter what you do. I took them to the local clinic first. The doctor there, he checked them, he gave them medicine, he said it might be malaria, or maybe typhoid, common sickness for children in that area. We gave them the medicine as he said. Nothing changed. If anything, both boys became weaker. Their bodies started to lose weight, small, like something inside them was eating them from the inside and we could not see it, we could not fight it, because we did not even know what it was. I want you to understand, I am not a poor man. Allah had blessed me, through the respect people had for me as Imam, through gifts, through small business I was doing on the side. So when the clinic could not help, I took my 2 boys to a bigger hospital in the city. I sold some of my things to pay for it. I did not care. What is money when your 2 sons are dying in front of you? The doctors in the city hospital, they ran many tests. They kept my boys there for many days. They gave them injection, they gave them drip, they gave them all kinds of medicine, and still, nothing. One doctor called me into his office and he was looking at his papers, shaking his head, and he said to me, "Malam, we are not sure what exactly is attacking your children. Their body is not responding to the treatment we are giving." I asked him, "So what do we do now?" And he just looked at me, and I could see in his eyes that even he, a man who studied medicine for many years, did not have an answer for me. That was the first time I felt something inside me start to crack. But I did not give up. I am a man of faith, remember. I told myself, this life, sickness is normal, everybody faces test, and Allah tests those he loves. I went back to my mosque and I prayed. I prayed like I never prayed before in my life. Every single prayer time, 5 times in the day, I was not just doing the normal prayer, I was crying to Allah, begging Him, reminding Him that these are my only 2 sons, that I have served Him all my life, that I have led His people in prayer, that I have never turned away from Him. I would prostrate on the ground until my forehead was sore, saying, "Ya Allah, please heal my children. Ya Allah, please do not take my 2 eyes from me." I did this not for 1 day, not for 1 week. I did this for months. Every night I would wake up in the middle of the night, and instead of sleeping I would be on my prayer mat, crying, begging, reciting whatever I know, whatever verse I could remember, hoping that this time, something will change. Nothing changed. I want to be honest with you, because this testimony will mean nothing if I am not honest. There is a kind of pain that comes when you pray and pray and pray, and heaven feels like it is closed. Like your words are just going up and hitting something hard and falling back down on your own head. I did not doubt Allah exists. I did not doubt that at that time. What I doubted was whether He was listening to me. Whether a man like me, an Imam, someone who has spent his whole life serving, was somehow not good enough, was somehow not doing something correct. Because if I was doing everything correct, why is nothing changing? My wife Zainab, she was breaking down too, but in a different way from me. Where I was still trying to hold myself together outside, still going to lead prayers, still trying to act like the strong Imam everybody knew, she was crying openly, refusing food, sitting beside the boy's bed for hours without moving. There were nights I would find her just sitting there in the dark, not sleeping, just watching them breathe, like she was afraid that if she closed her eyes even 1 second, she would miss the moment their breathing stopped. We did not stop at the hospital and the mosque. In our tradition, when things become this serious, this is when you also go to other people who claim to have spiritual power. People started to tell me, "Imam, maybe this is not ordinary sickness. Maybe somebody has done something to your children. Maybe there is a spiritual attack." I did not want to believe this at first, because I did not want to think somebody could hate me enough to do such a thing to innocent children. But when a man is desperate, when he watches his sons wasting away in front of him, he will listen to anybody who says they can help. So I went. I am not ashamed to tell you, even though today I understand things differently. I went to different men who claimed to have spiritual knowledge. I paid money. I did what they told me to do. One man told me to slaughter an animal and do certain things with the blood. Another man gave me some paper with writing on it, telling me to soak it in water and give the water to my sons to drink. Another one told me to bury certain things at the gate of my compound. I did all of this. Each time, I would go home with small hope in my heart, thinking, maybe this is it, maybe this time it will work. And each time, I would watch my sons, waiting, hoping to see improvement. Nothing worked. If anything, the boys grew worse and worse. By this time, months had passed since this sickness first started. Musa, the older one, who used to run and laugh and climb things, could no longer sit up by himself. His arms were thin like sticks. His eyes had become big in his face because the rest of his face had grown so thin. Yakubu was the same, maybe even worse, because he was smaller to begin with, and the sickness seemed to be eating him faster. Both boys had stopped eating properly. Even water, sometimes they could not keep down. Their breathing had changed. It was no longer normal breathing. It had become the kind of breathing where you can hear each breath, like the body is fighting hard just to bring in one more small bit of air. I remember the last hospital we went to before that night. It was another hospital, further away, because somebody told me there was a specialist doctor there who had helped many people. We traveled a long distance, myself, my wife, and my 2 boys on a stretcher, because by this time they could not sit up in a normal seat anymore. When we reached there, the doctor examined them for a long time. Then he called me outside, away from my wife, and he told me plainly, "Mum, I will not lie to you. I do not think there is much more we can do here. Whatever this is, it has gone very far into their bodies. I am sorry. I do not have the words to explain to you what a man feels when a doctor tells him that. It is like the ground under your feet just disappears, and you are falling, but nobody can see you falling because your body is still standing there, still looking normal on the outside." We had to bring the boys back home, because there was nothing more the hospital could do, and my wife could not bear the thought of them dying in a strange place, far from home. I remember that journey back. I sat in the back of the vehicle with both my sons, their small bodies on either side of me, and I was holding both their hands, and I could feel how weak their grip had become. Yakubu's hand, which used to grab my finger so tight when he was walking beside me, could barely close around my finger anymore. I kept looking at their chests, watching to see if they were still rising and falling, terrified that any moment I would look and see nothing move. We reached home that evening. We laid them on a stretcher in the main room of the house, because that room had more space and more air. My wife was beside me, and some of my close family members had gathered too, because word had spread that the Imam's 2 sons were now at the point of death. People were sitting outside the house, praying, some crying, some just sitting in silence, the way people do when they know something terrible is about to happen and there is nothing anybody can do to stop it. I sat down on the floor beside my 2 sons. I looked at Musa, and I looked at Yakubu. Their eyes were half open, but they did not seem to be seeing anything anymore. Their breathing had become so slow, so heavy, with long pauses in between each breath that made my own heart stop each time, waiting to see if the next breath would come. Their lips had started to turn a different color. I am a grown man, I have seen death before in my life, I have led funeral prayers many times, but nothing prepares a father to watch death coming for his own 2 children at the same time, in front of his own eyes. I want to tell you exactly what was going through my mind at that moment, because I think it is important for you to understand. I was not thinking clearly anymore. Months of praying, months of hoping, months of trying everything, and now I was sitting there watching the 2 most precious things in my life slipping away, and something inside me just broke completely. It was not a calm breaking. It was violent, like something tearing inside my chest. I had prayed to Allah so many times, using every prayer I knew, every name of Allah I could remember, every verse. I had done everything the religious men told me to do. I had spent almost everything I had, running from hospital to hospital, from one spiritual man to another. And here I was at the very end with nothing left. No money left to try another hospital. No more prayers left in my mouth that had not already been said 100 times. No more strength left in my body. I do not know how to explain what happened next, except to tell you that it did not come from my mind. It was not something I planned or thought about. It came from somewhere deeper than my thinking, from a place inside me that I did not even know existed until that moment. I remembered, from many years back, long before I became serious about my own religious training, I remembered as a small boy hearing about Jesus. Not much, just small pieces, the way you hear things when you are young and you are not paying too much attention. I remembered that some people said Jesus healed sick people when he was walking on this earth. I do not even know why that memory came to me at that exact moment, sitting there on the floor with my 2 dying sons in front of me. Maybe it is because I had reached the end of everything else. Maybe when a man has tried every door and every door is closed, something inside him will reach for whatever last thing is still floating in his memory, even a name he barely knows. I knelt down beside my 2 sons. My knees were shaking. My whole body was shaking, if I am honest with you. And I did something that I never imagined in my whole life I would ever do. I put my hands on my 2 sons' chests, one hand on Musa, one hand on Yakubu, and I cried out, with everything that was left inside me, with a voice that did not even sound like my own voice, I cried out, "Jesus, have mercy on me." I said it again. "Jesus, have mercy on me. Please, have mercy on my children." I do not know how many times I said it. I was crying so hard by this time that my words were coming out broken, mixed with my own sobbing. My wife was beside me, and she told me later that she was so shocked to hear me, an Imam, calling out that name, that for a moment she stopped even crying herself. She was just staring at me. But I did not care anymore what anybody thought. I did not care that I was an Imam. I did not care that people outside might hear me. All I cared about was my 2 sons, lying there, breathing their last breaths, and something deep inside me was crying out for help from the only name that came to my heart in that moment. And then I felt something. I want to describe this carefully, because I do not want to add anything to what happened, and I do not want to take anything away either. This is exactly how it felt to me. The room, which had been heavy like the air itself was thick with sorrow and fear, suddenly felt different. It is hard to explain to somebody who was not there. It was like a kind of light came into the room, not a light like from a lamp or from the sun, but a light that I felt more than I saw, if that makes sense to you. My skin felt it. The hair on my arms stood up. A kind of peace, a peace I cannot describe with normal words, came over that room, and it pushed away the fear that had been sitting there for so many months. Then I saw him. I know how this sounds. I know that if somebody told me this story before it happened to me, I would have looked at them like they were confused, like grief had made them see things that were not there. But I am telling you, with my 2 eyes open, fully awake, not sleeping, not dreaming, I saw a man standing there, near my 2 sons. I cannot fully explain to you what he looked like, because it was not like looking at an ordinary man. There was something about him that was different from anything I have ever seen. But what I remember most, more than his face, more than anything else, was the way I felt looking at him. It was like every fear inside me, every doubt, every pain from those long months, just became small, in front of whatever this was that was standing in my room. He bent down. He reached out his hand and touched Musa first, on his chest, just where my hand had been resting a moment before. Then he touched Yakubu the same way. I am telling you, before my very eyes, in that same moment, my 2 sons opened their eyes fully, properly, the way a person opens their eyes when they wake up refreshed from a good sleep, not the half-closed way they had been for so many weeks. Musa's chest, which had been struggling to rise and fall, suddenly started breathing normal, easy, like there had never been anything wrong. Yakubu did the same. Then, and this is the part that still makes my whole body shake when I tell it, both of my sons sat up. By themselves. Nobody helped them. These were boys who could not even lift their own arm few minutes before that, and now they were sitting up, looking around the room, looking at me, looking confused about why everybody was crying and shouting. I do not remember exactly what happened in the room after that, because everything became noise and confusion and shouting all at once. My wife screamed, not a scream of fear this time, but a scream I cannot describe, the kind of sound that comes out of a mother when the worst thing that could happen suddenly becomes the opposite. People who were sitting outside the house heard the noise and came running in, and when they saw my 2 sons sitting up, looking around, some of them started shouting too, some fell down on the ground, some just stood there with their mouths open, not able to believe what they were seeing with their own eyes. I turned to look for the man I had seen, the one who had touched my sons, but he was not there anymore. I looked around the room, I even went outside to see if he had walked out, but there was nobody there who was not already known to us. He had simply been there, and then he was not. That night, I did not sleep. Nobody in my house slept. We just sat there, myself and my wife, watching our 2 sons who just few hours before were breathing their very last breaths, now sitting up, talking, even asking for food because they said they were hungry, something they had not said in many, many weeks. I kept touching them, their arms, their faces, because part of me still could not believe it was real. I was scared that if I closed my eyes, I would open them again and find that everything had gone back to how it was before. But it did not go back. In the days that followed, my 2 sons continued to grow stronger. Their appetite came back fully. The weight that they had lost, little by little, started to return to their small bodies. Within 2 weeks, Musa was running around the compound again, the same way he used to, and hearing that laugh again, the laugh that used to make the whole house feel light. I cannot tell you what that did to my heart. Yakubu was right there behind him, following him around, the same as before. Now, I want to tell you what happened inside me after that night, because the healing of my sons was not the end of the story. It was, in a way, only the beginning of something else. For many days after that night, I could not stop thinking about what had happened. I am a man who had studied religion for many years. I had memorized much of the Quran. I had taught many people about faith. And yet, in the moment when everything else had failed, when all my prayers had seemed to hit a closed sky, it was the name of Jesus that I called without even thinking about it, and it was Jesus who came and touched my 2 sons and brought them back from the edge of death. I struggled with this. I will not pretend to you that I accepted everything immediately, that same night, and started praising Jesus with my whole heart right away. That is not what happened. What happened is that I began to ask myself many hard questions. I asked myself, why did this happen this way? Why, after everything, after all my prayers, all my fasting, all my prostrations, was it this name, this one name, that brought the answer? I did not have an easy answer for myself, and for many weeks, I carried this struggle quietly inside me, not telling anybody, not even my wife, about the questions that were now living inside my heart. But something had changed inside me that I could not undo, no matter how much I tried to go back to how things were before. When I would go to lead prayers at the mosque, my heart was not fully there anymore. I was going through the motions, saying the words I had said thousands of times before, but inside, I kept remembering that room, that light, that peace, that face I could not fully describe but could never forget. I kept remembering the way my 2 sons sat up the moment he touched them. No prayer of mine, no medicine from any hospital, no charm or ritual from any spiritual man, had been able to do what happened in one moment when I called out that name. I started, quietly in the night, when nobody was watching me, to say that name again. Just alone in my room I would say, Jesus. Sometimes I would just say it and nothing more, because I did not know what else to say. But each time I said it, something inside me felt lighter, felt more at peace, in a way that was different from the peace I used to feel, or thought I used to feel, from my old prayers. Slowly, over many months, I began to search. I want you to understand, this was not easy for me. In my community, in my culture, for an imam to even be seen holding a Bible, or asking questions about Jesus in the way I was asking, this could bring great shame, great trouble, even danger. So I had to be careful. I began to speak quietly to a few people I trusted, people who I heard had knowledge of the Christian faith. I began to read, in secret, parts of the Bible that I could find. And the more I read about this man Jesus, the more I began to understand, small by small, why it was his name, and no other name, that came out of my mouth in that darkest moment of my life. I learned that Jesus was not just another prophet like the ones I had been taught about my whole life. I learned that the people who follow him believe he is more than a prophet, that he is the Son of God, that he came to this earth to heal people, to save people, not just from sickness in their body, but from something deeper, something in the heart, something they call sin. I learned that he died, and that he rose up again from death, and that this is why his name carries such power, because he himself defeated death. And so when he touches somebody who is dying, death has to let go, because death has no power over him. The more I understood these things, the more everything that had happened that night began to make sense to me, in a way that gave me not just relief, but a kind of joy I had never known before, even in all my years as a religious man. I will not lie to you and tell you that everything after that was easy. When I finally could not hide it anymore, when people in my community began to notice the change in me, when I stopped leading prayers the way I used to, when word began to spread that Imam Ibrahim had turned his heart toward Jesus, there was much trouble. Some people who I had known for many years, who used to greet me with respect, stopped speaking to me. Some members of my own extended family said terrible things, called me names, said I had brought shame on our family name. There were even threats against me and against my family, because in some places, when a man who has held a position like mine changes his faith, it is seen as a very serious thing, and not everybody reacts with understanding. But I want to tell you something. After what I saw that night, after watching my 2 sons come back from the very edge of death with my own eyes, no threat, no shame, no loss of respect from other people could make me deny what I had experienced. I had spent months begging heaven for an answer through everything I knew, and heaven had answered, but not in the way I expected, not through the paths I had walked my whole life. It answered through a name I barely knew, a name that had been sitting quietly somewhere in the back of my memory since I was a small child, waiting for the moment when I had nothing left, and that was the moment it came forward and saved my 2 sons. Today, my sons Musa and Yakubu are grown, healthy, strong young men. When people look at them now, nobody would ever believe that these 2 once lay on a stretcher, gasping their last breaths, their small bodies wasted almost to nothing. They do not fully remember all the details of that night, because they were so sick, so close to the edge, but they know the story. I have told it to them many times, and each time I tell it, I feel that same feeling from that night, all over again, that mix of terror and then that sudden light and peace. My wife Zainab also came to know Jesus in her own way, in her own time, after watching what happened, after watching how my heart changed, after seeing that the peace I now carried was not something false, not something I was pretending, but something real, something that had settled deep inside me and never left. I know that some people who hear this testimony will not believe me. Some will say I am confused, or that grief made me imagine things, or that I am simply telling a story to convince people to leave their own faith. I understand why some people would think this way, because before it happened to me, I also would have found it hard to believe such a thing. But I was there. I was the one holding my son's weak hands in that vehicle, feeling their grip growing weaker. I was the one who sat with the doctor who told me there was nothing more he could do. I was the one who knelt on that floor with nothing left inside me except one name that came from somewhere I still cannot fully explain, and I was the one who watched, with my own eyes wide open, as that name became a person standing in my room, touching my 2 dying sons back to life. I do not tell this story to bring shame on anybody, or to say that people of my former faith are bad people, because I know many good, sincere people who still hold to the faith I grew up in. I tell this story because it is what happened to me, and I believe that if I keep quiet about it, if I hide what I saw and what I experienced, I would be hiding the very thing that saved my family. I could not do that. Not after everything we went through. Not after watching my 2 eyes, my 2 sons, come back to me from the edge of the grave. So this is my testimony. Not something I heard from another person, and I am passing it along like old news. This is what I lived through, what I felt with my own body, what I saw with my own eyes, on a night I will never, ever forget for as long as I live. A night when every door I knew how to knock on had already closed, and one name, spoken out of pure desperation, opened a door I did not even know existed. And that door is still open, for anybody, no matter what faith they were born into, no matter how many other doors they have knocked on before, no matter how far they think they have wandered, or how impossible their situation looks. If that door opened for me, an Imam, a man who had spent his whole life serving another way, then I believe with everything in me that it can open for anybody who calls out with a true and desperate heart. That is my testimony, and I will keep telling it, for as long as for as long as God gives me breath to speak.